We know that when we look at pre-recorded content, right? I'm going to watch a show on TV. I'm going to fast forward through every commercial. I'm never going to sit there and watch a commercial anymore. So live sports is the only place on TV that I know of that you're actually going to sit there and watch the commercial, because either you're going to be on delay, maybe you let it record a little bit, but then somebody is going to mess it up for you, or you're going to just sit there and work through that commercial. So building the relationship with the athlete, between the viewer and the athlete, is a huge element in keeping your attention. And now the question is, Dave Kittle, how's it going?
Tony, good morning. Feeling great. How are you?
And I need to jump in here to get on the camera so that we can talk. But like entrepreneurs, physical therapists, occupational therapists, they are the best at making things work, figuring things out, making things work. And I have a feeling today we can talk about that a little bit for the episode. Now, you're looking sharp. What's different with the setup for you?
I have my new Logitech camera that you've been urging me to purchase for, I don't know, 2 years, 4 years, something like that.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, the internet is still a little bit flaky, but the sound is awesome. The visual, like I can see the highlight in your eye. It looks so much better than the webcam on the, what'd you have, a MacBook Pro? MacBook Air?
MacBook Air, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what's on your mind? It's the end of July. Like, we are past the halfway point for the year. Big things should be happening for everybody coming into the end of 2024. I've got a couple of topics on my mind, but what have you been thinking about?
Well, we have to start off by mentioning the Olympics, and we have a few business and marketing and branding ideas and strategies that we've been noticing recently with the Olympics. So we should probably start there, unless you have something else that's a little more.
That's perfect. Go ahead. You launch it.
All right. So I shared with you and Jimmy last night in the chat that Apex Physical Therapy, I forget where they're at in Florida, Angie McGilvery and her husband, I think they're both PTs. They own the practice. And then there was a local news clip that one of their physical therapists was treating one of our USA Olympians. I apologize. I forget I watched it maybe a week or two ago, so I can't recall which athlete, maybe swimmers, but the news clip showed manual therapy being delivered. And then obviously, so by the physical therapy practice, and then interviewing and speaking to the athletes about their treatments, their preparation, their prehab, getting ready for the Olympics, all of that. And I believe either in that video or another video that physical therapist from Apex Physical Therapy, and I think maybe Angie as well, have traveled over to Paris right now to be with those athletes to deliver treatment. So I think, there's a whole bunch of things here. At the very least, I think it's a great way for you to get a practice to get local marketing and branding and free exposure. And we can go into the pros and cons of, I don't know, first of all, how do they get lucky? How did they get these athletes? Are they, you and I know that some of these athletes are not, they're representing our country, but a lot of these athletes are not, they don't have a lot of financial resources in some cases, especially if they're like, newer or younger or no names or whatever. So, what are the pros and cons of offering that type of therapy for free, just so you can potentially get some of these news clips, or you do your own videos and you post them on social media and you interview these athletes? I think it's amazing. And then the fact that they went over there and traveled with them to Paris, obviously is a cool, life experience and all that. We can maybe discuss some ways to potentially get Olympians in your practice in 4 years from now, or 3 years or whatever, 3.5 years from now, on their lead up to their performance. So maybe we could, start there. I know there was something else with the clothing and the uniforms that I want to kind of tie in and get to, but how about the Olympians being treated by physical therapists in the US, and how can other owners learn from this? How can they kind of steal this strategy and potentially help Olympians and kind of get a little bit of that local spotlight?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I want to share a couple experiences that I've had as a therapist, private practice owner, and as it leads into that. So I remember, man, it was 15 to 17 years ago, super sweet young girl, probably 8 or 9 years old, pretty competitive gymnast, just came into the practice because she lives locally. Turns out over the next 10 years, multiple injuries, repeated episodes of care. She turns into a great collegiate gymnast, top level, wins all these prizes, places really well. Doesn't go on to the Olympics, but the idea is, I think this is generally how it happens. Just a typical kid shows up with an injury, usually overuse, different topic. And then they end up, who knows, they're going to be the next Olympian or they're going to go to trials. I had it with this situation. I had it with a weightlifter. He was going to Olympic trials. I was volunteering for Team Florida down in Sarasota. He was an amazing athlete. He didn't make it to the Olympics, but again, these were very close. I had a third individual, very similar. I had a great opportunity as a PT student where I was at Bolletary Academy, IMG down in Bradenton. We had just incredible athletes, incredible exposure. Now, what I think is interesting is how that is taken, how that is capitalized on for therapists relative to maybe a shoe company, right? Like, what do? We tend to pull away from the spotlight. We tend to hide in the background. We tend to not take advantage, not leverage these opportunities. Apex is there. Let's see what Apex does, because there's obviously a little bit of buzz right now. Are they going to double down? Are they going to leverage that for the next couple years? Are they going to grab clips of that and put it in their marketing and push it out to the consumer? Or are they just going to kind of fade into the background? I think the biggest frustration for me is just so often we don't capitalize on those opportunities. I would also love to see, this is where I would love to see APTA come out, capture those, little opportunities of exposure, collectively bring them out, push them on social media, make it more popular so that more people can see it. I don't think we can necessarily say, I'm going to be the physical therapist for the next, gold medal winner. But when it does happen, I think we need to capture that magic in a bottle.
All right. So I think other owners can absolutely learn from this, can utilize this. How much do you think they should offer potentially pro bono or for free? There, you get the local spotlight on the especially if it's like a TV news camera. Could you offer that Olympian like a free package or two? I think that's reasonable. Are you going to go and travel to Paris on your own dime and treat them for free over there? I think that's a little bit of a stretch. But if you love the sport and you love the Olympics, it could be a great experience. Now, if the athlete can get you free tickets inside some of the events, then maybe you break even, right?
I think it depends on the business model. 25 years ago, I would have foot the bill for everything and I would have gone just because I wanted the experience and I wanted to be around it. Today, I'm not going unless I get paid a ridiculous amount of money. That's not my goal. That's not my intention. And again, you said it earlier, my experience is these Olympic athletes are mostly funding their own stuff. I know they get a little bit of money from the Olympic Committee, and I know they get a little bit of money if they place on the podium. But generally speaking, these athletes are funding themselves. They're barely scraping by. They've got jobs to support their ability to still compete and train and do all of this. It's really a struggle, So I would bet, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I would bet the therapists, the athletic trainers, the support teams that you see over there with the athletes, a lot of that is self-funded. And again, if you're going to turn that into marketing material, branding material, and now the therapist who is there is going to come back and they're going to charge premium rates for their services, totally worth it as a marketing expense. But most of the time, that's not what I see happens. It just turns into a story that they're going to tell their grandkids that I was a physical therapist back in the 2024 Olympics and I got to be there on site and it was amazing. But it never goes beyond that.
Yeah. Now, if with the whole Olympics, what else are you seeing? I know there was something else that you shared in the chat that kind of tied.
So let's talk about the branding, right? You see these Olympic athletes with Nike and Adidas and all of these different brands all over. And then I don't remember, and I don't have it on my phone, but a specific brand came out, or now athletes are going unbranded, because what was happening was they would win Olympic gold, and now the brand that they were wearing just out of that's what they had gets all of this notoriety and all of this free press. So if somebody had come up with this idea to say, hey, we're going to give you all unbranded clothing. This way, if you win, now you can sell the value of that winning. Now, I originally thought, now this would be an interesting one. I want to hear your take on it, Dave. So the clothes they were wearing was just plain blank clothing, no branding, no design, no lines or anything. I was like, I wonder if they're going to use AI to then go back after, if they win and Nike says, we want to endorse you. They go back with AI and they add branding to the clothing that they have, almost like a green screen. Like, think of it like a green screen, because that is, billboard material right there. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think they're just saying, hey, we're not going to give away the value of this free media unless you pay for it ahead of time. And then if we win and nobody paid for it, now we've got something to negotiate. But I think there are just so many opportunities in this, again, with AI, to go back and start to capitalize on some of that. What do you think?
I didn't know that there was some potential artificial intelligence angle. It kind of seemed like from this Bandit, was it Bandit Sports?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Solid black uniforms and outfits for the track athletes and many of the other Olympians. I think they performed it geniusly, which is kind of like something that would get talked about, something that would get maybe written up in blogs or, mentioned somewhere on the internet. And, solid black for the Olympics, it is unique. I mean, you either got to go solid white or solid black. I mean, all the other countries have different color logos and the athletes are wearing typically the country's colors or the variations of those colors for that year or that Olympiad. So the solid black is pretty unique. And it's something that it's probably like a loss leader, right? And then they get the free, they pay for this upfront. They lose some money with paying for these uniforms. And then as soon as it's mentioned like this, and now we're talking about it on our show and other places, other people are talking about it. Then I didn't yet. And I don't know if you have, but like, I'll probably go and check out, Bandit, whatever, what other things do they sell? Do they sell clothes that I might get for working out? Like what other performance gear or things, or what are they about? And now they're on my radar. And so in the future, if I see something with Bandit, I have the connection in my mind with them and the Olympics. So then maybe I'll be more likely to pay out of pocket, pay for something that either I don't need, or maybe it's, more of like a Nike, like aspirational type of a product in terms of price point. So who knows?
Yeah, I had never heard of the company before. This was a great way to generate some press and get them in front of their ideal audience. And truthfully, I mean, when I think about it, I'm not, at least I don't think I'm influenced by influencers. If LeBron James is wearing something, I don't think I'm going to shoot a basketball like him because I buy the same shoes as him. But I will say, when I'm looking at Olympic athletes, I do have a feeling, or at least in my brain, I'm like, they're probably wearing the best performance gear, whether it be the shoe, the shirt, the shorts, whatever. So I probably have a higher level of trust buying something that an Olympian is wearing rather than buying something that a professional athlete is wearing. The other thing that I wanted to mention that I thought was interesting was we were watching the swimming and the gymnastics the other night. And the way the media companies had everything ready to go so that the moment somebody scored, a gold medal time or score, instantly they had the background story ready. And it's like they play the story about them as a kid, and they had pictures of them growing up, and they had all of this context. The Olympics, I'm sitting there watching this. It's really, they've done such an amazing job building the story around the person more than just the athletic performance. And so, you hear about this person was adopted and they went through these challenges, and this person had a kidney failure that, I mean, that story by itself with the gymnast who had the kidney issues and she was completely out of training to be able to come back and compete at this level in such a short amount of time just blows your mind. And so now you're rooting for this person because of the background story, because of everything that they've shared. Goes back into what we do on a daily basis, which is, look, Dave, you might be an amazing therapist, but if I don't know anything about you, I don't know anything about your past history, about your philosophy, about your culture, like, I'm not going to have a connection to you. But as soon as I start to hear, oh, Dave played baseball and Dave did this and Dave lives in Brooklyn and he's a new dad, and all of a sudden I start to create these connections where I want to get to know you. I want to work with you. I want you to be my therapist. Again, we don't do a very good job at building that kind of context around the therapeutic relationship.
So when they, like NBC or whoever's doing I forget if it's ABC, NBC, whatever, when they do those spotlights and they have because one of them was the pommel horse or the overall, I forget, like all the like the rings. What's that? I'm sorry. What's the?
I don't know, but just go with men's gymnastics.
The men's gymnastics. Thank you. Men's gymnastics. One of those guys had like some ACL injury like a couple years ago. So they did like a whole background video with his family, and he was like on a farm riding horses, and they they wake up at whatever, 4 or 5 a.m. And the first thing they have to do is take care of the horses. So you're right. Like NBC or whoever is hosting, whatever channel is hosting, they have this whole backstory for each of these athletes, especially, I don't know if maybe it's most of them or all of them, in case any of them break out and have some amazing performance. Why do you think they do that? Do you think they do that to keep our attention so that we talk about these athletes more, so that there's some human connection there? And then, because ultimately they want to sell advertisements, right? Like NBC, I mean, obviously they want to display this amazing performance of our athletes in Paris and all other Olympiads whenever it happens. But do they have these backstories set up already to give us something different to watch temporarily? That's not the sport, that's not the performance. Is it to get that human connection so that it keeps our eyeballs watching more and more of the Olympics? Like, obviously, I think there's got to be some, monetary, capitalistic reason, but at the same time, it's like a warm-hearted reason as well. But that's what sells and that's what works and keeps attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber in the world, came out a couple months or maybe close to a year ago and said the biggest drawback to the content he used to produce was he couldn't build those relationships. He couldn't make a connection between the people that were in the Mr. Beast challenge for that video and the viewers. And what would happen is people would click off prematurely. So in his newer content, now Mr. Beast has a huge deal with Amazon, but in his newer content, he said, I am going to focus more time on building relationships, sharing backstories, getting the viewer to connect with the participant in my video. We know that when we look at pre-recorded content, right? I'm going to watch a show on TV. I'm going to fast forward through every commercial. I'm never going to sit there and watch a commercial anymore. So live sports is the only place on TV that I know of that you're actually going to sit there and watch the commercial, because either you're going to be on delay, maybe you let it record a little bit, but then somebody is going to mess it up for you, or you're going to just sit there and work through that commercial. So building the relationship with the athlete, between the viewer and the athlete, is a huge element in keeping your attention. And now the question is, all right, so how do we do this? Bring that concept into therapy. I call these hostage testimonials. Like, we see therapists that share hostage testimonials, persons up against a blank wall, cameras in their face, overhead lighting like you guys see here. And they're like, tell us why you love physical therapy. And the patient's like, this was great. I feel so much better. It's a horrible, horrible testimonial, but this is what we're used to doing. So I've always said, like, how can we build a relationship? I would love to see a reality style show. I would love to show the development, the progression of the patient. If there's going to be a good patient for social media, like, get clips of the evaluation, get clips of midway through the plan of care, get non-biased, non-scripted, real interaction between the therapist, the patient, talking, sharing ideas. And again, we're doing that because we want to build an emotional connection between the patient in the clinic and the prospective patient who's watching that video clip of that patient in your clinic. I think this is a universal thing that all media has done forever.
So around that, with the reality show or just recording, right? Let's say, Tony, you lived in New York City, you called up my practice and were like, hey, we charge $250 to $350 per visit, depending on which therapist. And now I'm price anchoring at $500 a visit for weekend visits. And let's say you're like, that is way too expensive. I mean, I read all your Google reviews. Your website resonates with me. I really like what I see, but I just don't have the financial budget for it. Should I, or could I, or other practice owners watching or listening, if you're cash-based, assuming that you're cash-based, and if a prospective patient calls in that after you have a conversation with them, if you kind of decided they're the right fit and they truly need your help and they just don't have the financial resources to pay, and regardless of whatever your rates are, $100, $125, $150 a visit, $175, whatever your rates are, where in any other state, if someone like Tony calls up and is the right fit but cannot pay my out-of-pocket rates, what are the pros and cons of me saying, well, I can have you sign a consent form and I'll charge you $100 or $50 a visit or whatever, in exchange for you signing over the ability and you consenting so that we can record all the visits. Like, we'll record your initial evaluation. If you want to schedule more visits, we could do that. Is there any legal considerations or any issues with offering a cash pay discounted rate in exchange for recording the entire patient interaction, the whole visit? You could have an editor chop it up later. You could put the whole visit, the whole hour long or however long you do visits, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. I know you'll probably like this because you've done some of this stuff in the past, Tony, but any like issues with that or legal considerations? Or, I mean, obviously we're not lawyers.
Yeah, of course. We're not lawyers. I purchased my media releases from Iris, from Nancy Beckley, from multiple resources that are out there. So let's spend a little time talking about this, because I've shared this concept in different ways over the last 5 to 10 years. You've got option number one. You are my patient. You call me. You want to come in for therapy. Even forget the discounts, forget everything else, right? If you're a Medicare beneficiary, I'm going to make $100 on the hour. Okay, I'm not going to survive on that. But if I document, and I like to use the word document, if I document that engagement, and I document, let's say, a 12-visit plan of care, and I provide you informed consent, I provide you the HIPAA privacy notice, I've got the media releases that effectively give you the right as the patient to, refuse for me to share this content, or to request that I remove the content at some point in the future. Like, all of these are elements in your rights as a patient. But once we get past that, and it can be done, absolutely it can be done, then what happens is I record my initial evaluation with you, Dave Kittle. I'm evaluating your post-surgical, Tommy John surgery. And so I'm going to evaluate that in a very specific way because I'm a physical therapist. And then I would put that information out on social media. And maybe I put it on YouTube. It's a monetized YouTube channel. And now that video is starting to generate views. I've got videos on YouTube that have generated a couple $1,000s, 8-minute video over the last 3 or 4 years. So now what's happened is I took the $100, I would call it a loss leader, Medicare reimbursement, and I've monetized that hour of my life, your life, and it's generated $1,000 on YouTube because so many people want to see what it's like to go to physical therapy for a Tommy John, recovery program. There's that option. We can monetize in that way. Absolutely reasonable. And, it should be done that way. Option number 2, just like you said, you can't afford my therapy. So the value exchange is you're not going to give me money, but you're going to give me rights to the media. You're going to sign off all of the notices and everything. And now I'm going to share that. I could sell that to YouTube advertisers. I could sell that to other therapists. Maybe there's something, a pelvic floor therapist who's treating a condition, and I've never done pelvic floor. I have no idea what even to expect. Male pelvic floor is huge. We know a couple guys in New York that are doing it. So maybe I want to pay 10 or 20 bucks to see a real therapist with a real patient, have a real interaction, just so I get an idea of what something like that is like. And then maybe I want to go get the education and the training I would need to bring that into my clinic. Yes, it's possible. Yes, it's doable. I think that should be the future of education. To think that right now there are classrooms of DPT students across the country who are sitting there listening to a professor read from a book is absurd when we live in a social media world that a student could be with you, Dave, in Brooklyn, seeing how you do it. And then 20 minutes later could be with me in Middletown, Ohio. And then 20 minutes later could be with a therapist in California. How are we not accessing the real education that's happening every single day?
Makes a lot of sense. I always think of, I know you like to go to the DPT in education side of things, but I always like to think of like the marketing exposure to get the physical therapy evaluations and treatments, capture that, get it out on social media, and typically attract more patients. I think, and I don't know if we've talked about this too much, but I need to do this. We need to do this in my practice. And I think that it can help attract new therapists, like the way that Josh Funk and Rehab to Performance or Rehab to Perform and all these other practices are putting out different types of content. I know Jimmy and I have talked about this as well, but putting out the patient experience, like the patient visits on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, even if it's the full visit or if it just clips, I always look at it as like, I would want to do that and get a ROI for it because I want to attract more new prospective patients and more leads and more patients and clients into our practice. But at the same time, it can also attract other therapists because they just see it on social media and they're like, oh, that is a practice that's near me and that resonates with me. And that can help with getting more new resumes and the whole hiring and staffing challenges that we've been talking about. And then at the same time, real quick, at the same time, I think it can also attract physicians and referral partners because I know on Instagram, there's a lot of New York City based physicians. As I mentioned before, I connected with a bunch of them. And so if I put out content like that, it's potentially like you still would want to have it kind of guided to some of the specific populations. But that one piece of content, if I evaluate Tony as a patient, it could help me attract more new patients. It could help attract other therapists, potential therapists and candidates to interview, and then also potentially referral partners.
Yeah, 100%. I remember somebody had shared on one of the Facebook groups recently. I think it might have been a response to Joey Albritton's recent post where he was talking about stop sharing on social media. You're not trying to attract a national audience. If you're looking to get more patients into your business, sharing stuff on social media isn't usually going to help that. And somebody within that replied, and they talked about, I think it was Instagram, and I think they talked about putting posts on Instagram specifically for recruitment efforts and trying to attract therapists to employ. You and Rob Vining had done an interview. It wasn't the first interview with me. It was one of the later interviews. And we talked about that. Now, this must have been 10, 15 years ago, but we talked about that. I said, look, I'm not putting media out there specifically on Instagram to attract patients. I am putting media out there to show potential candidates that I want to hire. This is what therapy is like at Total Therapy Solutions. And lately, I've been sharing a lot of Facebook posts from my knee replacement support group. These are real people who are in physical therapy or quit physical therapy because they hated physical therapy. And I'm like, look, this is what real people are saying. And a lot of this comes from not that it's a good therapist, a bad therapist, or whatever. They had no idea what to expect going to that specific therapy center or that specific therapist. And you know, you go to Dave, you go to me. You're probably going to get a very different patient care experience between the two. The patient should have the information available for them to see what the experience is going to be like and to know what the expectations are, a la Jerry Durham, before they ever pick up the phone, before they ever try to reach out to any of us. So, yeah, I agree with you, Dave. There's the recruitment element where you want therapists who want to come work for you, not therapists you're trying to convince to come work for you. You want patients who want to be your patient, not patients who are coming in because the doctor told them to go to therapy. All of that comes with these kinds of experiences. And there's nothing more genuine than seeing a real patient engagement. You know, I shared a video last night. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, where it was 5 years ago. I recorded a video in the lobby of my physical therapy clinic. My value proposition in the video wasn't that we're the best therapists. It was convenient parking, no surprise billing, and flexible scheduling. And I still have that value proposition, you know, but Go to You is going to be the best manual therapy. It's going to be, you know, the best education, like all these other things. I just wish more therapists would produce more content.
So I agree with a lot of the things that Joey Albritton has been posting on Facebook. The thing that he said about, you know, the social media doesn't need one more video of like how to do a shoulder external rotation exercise video from a physical therapist. I agree with him. However, there's physical therapists out there. It depends on their intent. So are they just putting out videos because other physical therapists are putting out videos? Then he's 100% right. And like that physical therapist is probably wasting time. However, if a physical therapist can comment on that post, like Josh Funk or someone else, and say, we put out this like different silos, we'll put out, you know, results, you know, graduation, discharge type videos or pictures, and that helps attract other patients, or, you know, videos or graphics around the Google reviews, or someone ringing the bell or whatever, like, and they reach whatever milestone or goal, that's going to attract more new patients. But like you said, there are more and more physical therapists out there that are continuing to put out these exercise videos. And if any of them can comment, if they're listening to this, if any of them can comment on this post, on our episode, or on Joey Albritton's post, or wherever, somewhere online, can you let us know, please, that you've had physical therapy candidates come to you and say, you know, here's my resume. Are you guys hiring? I want to interview with you. And I found you on Instagram, or I found you on Facebook, and I love this content that you guys are posting. I can kind of see your culture, your morale, how you guys carry yourselves. I love the whatever, I don't know, the exercise prescription. I love the you know, the style of patients that you guys treat and help, and the athletes or the weekend warriors or whoever. That's what I want to hear from, because then the intent would be less about just one extra random exercise video that the online world doesn't even need. If it attracts resumes and candidates, then keep doing it. And then I would say, if that's the case, then Joey is like halfway wrong, because if it's attracting resumes and candidates, the intent is not for new patient marketing. So it depends on the intent.
It is. And we're never going to know. Let me ask you this. I am shocked, genuinely shocked at how little, and when I say little, I mean zero, how little inbound messaging I get from current active students. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal is. I remember way back in my career as an employer, one of the most frustrating things for me was the lack of curiosity in my employees. So I would always, what are you thinking about? What do you want to learn about? Like, what excites you? And there was really never anything there that somebody would be like, I want to do this and this and this. Students are in kind of a similar boat, but as I look at the landscape, I am shocked at how few students are actually reaching out. Now, I don't know if because they think they're too busy with studies. I don't know if maybe I'm just not in front of their network, like because I'm not so much on Instagram and TikTok. I'm more on Facebook. They don't even know that I exist. Have you had any kind of inbound from students that are like, I think what you're doing is amazing. I want to follow you? Because I get a lot from therapists. Therapists are like, almost daily, I get a message or an email from a therapist who's like, I've been quietly following you for years. Thank you so much for the content you share and the innovative ideas. But I don't get anything from students.
I sometimes over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, I'll get a few here and there on either LinkedIn or Facebook DM. But typically they're going to be like very like about to graduate, or they're studying for boards, or they're not contacting me for a rotation. Very, very a small, maybe 5 all time asking for a rotation that I can recall. So yeah, I mean, if anything, it's usually like newer grads looking for their first job, or it's someone that's, looking to relocate to New York City or something like that. Or they're from here and they went to school somewhere else and they're like finishing up their DPT program and they're going to come get licensed here, or they're moving back, or they're moving to New York City. But I agree. I'm similar, not too much of the curiosity type cold messaging from DPT students at this time.
So if you're not doing it when you're a student, you're not going to be doing it when you're working full time. I just feel like a combination effort needs to be put forth between the professors. If I was a professor in a DPT program today, I would be like, guys, you need to be flooding. You need to be spamming. You need to be getting out there and building your professional network right now, so that when the time comes that you want to, leverage these connections, they already exist. And I'm sorry, no matter how hard your program is, you have more time when you're a student than you do when you're a working professional. So, and married and kids and mortgage and all the other stuff. So I'd be like, as a professor, get out there. I would demand you get 3 extra credit points for every 10 therapists you meet, network with, and build a relationship with. And then as a student, I would just be like, all right, this is my full-time job. I'm going to DM and connect. I'm going to consume content, and I'm going to make relationships with people that are out there in the profession right now. I know we could never study it, but I would love to see the income discrepancy between the student today who's building a professional network with therapists that are working right now, compared to the student who graduates and then looks for a job with no connections.
Yeah, 2 different paths, and you can choose which one. But obviously the one where you're reaching out and you're building relationships, you'll have so many more options. You'll have more leverage, right?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.